There are moments in life when the deepest pain is not the battle itself, but the silence in which it was fought. There are burdens carried so faithfully that no witness ever applauds them, no crowd ever notices them, and no friend ever understands their weight. Yet hidden endurance has a language of its own. It shapes the soul in ways comfort never could. Perhaps you have overlooked the quiet strength of someone walking beside you. Perhaps the one you believed needed the least attention has been carrying the greatest sorrow. Sometimes the strongest heart is the one breaking most quietly. Today is not a story about despair. It is about unseen sacrifice, about tears that have fallen where no eyes could see them, and about the mysterious way love continues to endure when every reason to surrender has already arrived. Listen carefully, because this message is not meant merely to comfort your emotions. It is meant to awaken your understanding. There is a peculiar loneliness reserved for those entrusted with great responsibility. It is not the loneliness of empty rooms, but the loneliness of misunderstood hearts. A person may stand surrounded by voices and yet remain completely unknown because the heaviest burdens are rarely visible. The world celebrates victories while overlooking the silent nights that made those victories possible. If you have ever watched someone smile while carrying invisible wounds, then you have already witnessed one of life's greatest mysteries. Strength often disguises suffering. The strongest among us become experts at hiding their exhaustion because they fear that revealing it will only place another burden upon those they love. Think for a moment about how easily we assume that silence means peace. We mistake composure for comfort. We confuse patience with the absence of pain. Yet beneath calm waters there may exist powerful currents pulling against every effort to remain afloat. There are seasons when love chooses not to speak, because speaking would only deepen another's sorrow. There are people who quietly surrender their own ease so that others may continue believing tomorrow will be brighter than today. Such sacrifice rarely receives applause. It often goes unnoticed until time uncovers what affection deliberately concealed. The soul is not strengthened merely by avoiding hardship. It is refined through faithful endurance. Every hidden tear becomes a silent testimony that compassion still survives within a world increasingly distracted by appearances. Every unnoticed act of faithfulness becomes another stone laid upon the unseen foundation of character. Many spend their lives searching for extraordinary signs while overlooking the extraordinary courage already living beside them. They expect greatness to arrive with thunder, yet genuine greatness usually walks softly. It prepares meals while carrying grief. It offers encouragement while wrestling with uncertainty. It remains present long after convenience has departed. Love has always possessed this remarkable quality. It bears weight without announcing its burden. It protects without demanding recognition. It gives even when its own hands have grown weary. Such love resembles a quiet lamp that continues burning through the darkest hours, asking for nothing except enough oil to keep serving until morning arrives. Yet no hidden sacrifice remains concealed forever. Truth has its own patient rhythm. What has been carried in secret eventually finds its light. Not because suffering seeks attention, but because authentic love cannot remain invisible forever. Its influence spreads quietly through every life it has touched. Perhaps someone close to you has carried more than you ever imagined. Perhaps they learned long ago that silence was easier than explanation. They feared becoming another source of worry, so they transformed their pain into quiet perseverance. They stood faithfully at their place while storms raged within their own heart. There comes a moment in every meaningful relationship when masks begin to fall away. The carefully maintained appearance of effortless strength finally gives way to honest vulnerability. Tears once withheld are no longer signs of weakness, but evidence that the heart has loved deeply enough to risk being wounded. Do not fear such moments. Tears are not always the language of defeat. Sometimes they become the final release before healing begins. A goodbye is not always the end of love. Often it marks the end of unnecessary burdens, false expectations, or seasons that have demanded more than any soul should carry alone. The greatest transformations seldom begin with celebration. They begin with truth. They begin when hidden pain is finally acknowledged, when silent endurance is finally honored, and when weary hearts discover they no longer have to pretend that everything is fine. What has been carried alone need not remain carried alone forever. Compassion grows wherever honesty is welcomed. Hope returns wherever burdens are shared. The journey forward is not made lighter because the road changes, but because hearts learn that love was never meant to bear its greatest weights in complete isolation. There is a remarkable mystery hidden within the people who appear to need the least help. They walk through crowded rooms with steady steps, offer reassuring words when others begin to tremble, and somehow become the shoulders upon which countless burdens are placed. The world often mistakes this quiet resilience for invincibility. It assumes that because someone rarely complains, they rarely hurt. Yet the strongest souls are frequently those who have simply learned to carry pain without allowing it to spill into the lives of those they love. Their silence is not proof that suffering has passed them by. Their silence is often the language of a heart determined to protect others from storms that it has chosen to weather alone. Strength has never been measured by the absence of tears. It has always been measured by what a person chooses to do after those tears have fallen. There are individuals who wake each morning carrying memories that would discourage many, yet they continue offering kindness as though their own hearts have never been broken. They speak gently because they know what harsh words can do. They become patient because they understand what it feels like to wait for relief that never seems to arrive. Their compassion grows not because life has been easy, but because hardship has taught them the value of mercy. The hidden burden is rarely dramatic. It does not announce itself with loud cries or public displays. Instead, it settles quietly upon the shoulders, becoming part of everyday life until even the one carrying it begins to believe that constant heaviness is normal. Responsibilities accumulate one upon another. Expectations multiply. The desire to remain dependable slowly becomes an invisible chain. Every promise made to others becomes another reason to keep personal struggles concealed. Every smile offered becomes another mask protecting wounds that have not yet healed. Many people spend years becoming experts at appearing untroubled. They answer every question with reassurance. They insist everything is fine because they fear honesty may become another burden for someone else to carry. They convince themselves that their own weariness can wait until everyone around them has found peace. Day after day, they postpone their own healing in the hope of preserving another person's comfort. Such sacrifice is noble, yet it also carries a quiet danger. A heart that continually gives without receiving care eventually grows exhausted. Even if it never stops loving, there is a peculiar loneliness attached to hidden strength. It is the loneliness of being admired without being understood. Others celebrate reliability but rarely ask what maintaining that reliability has required. They praise courage without recognizing the fear that courage had to overcome. They applaud endurance without seeing the countless nights when giving up seemed easier than continuing. Outward composure often conceals inward battles so intense that words could never fully describe them. The world is fascinated by visible victories, yet the greatest triumphs often occur where no audience exists. They happen when someone chooses forgiveness instead of bitterness, despite carrying painful memories. They happen when kindness survives disappointment. They happen when hope quietly rises again after every apparent reason for despair has already spoken. These victories never become headlines, but they shape the character of a person more profoundly than public achievements ever could. Every hidden burden leaves its mark. It changes the way a person listens, the way they respond to weakness, the way they notice sorrow in the eyes of strangers. Those who have suffered deeply often recognize pain before it is spoken because they have become fluent in the language of silent endurance. They understand the tired smile, the forced laughter, the distant gaze that appears only for a moment before disappearing beneath another practiced expression. Their compassion is not theoretical. It has been carved into them through experience. It is easy to assume that those who carry much require little encouragement because they appear so capable. Yet capable people also grow weary. Dependable people also need someone willing to notice when their strength begins to fade. Even those who have become pillars for others occasionally long for a place where they can set their burdens down without fear of disappointing anyone. Every human heart, regardless of how resilient it appears, was created with the need to be understood as well as admired. Hide burdens have a curious way of shaping identity. A person may become so accustomed to carrying responsibility that they forget who they are apart from it. They begin measuring their worth by how much they can endure rather than by the simple reality of their humanity. Rest feels undeserved. Asking for help feels like a failure. They continue pressing forward, believing that stopping even briefly would somehow diminish the value of everything they have sacrificed. Yet there comes a moment when quiet endurance invites honest reflection. Not because strength has disappeared, but because wisdom begins to recognize that carrying everything alone was never the highest expression of courage. True strength is not merely the ability to bear weight. It is also the humility to acknowledge when the weight has become too great for one pair of shoulders. It is the willingness to let compassion flow in both directions, allowing others the privilege of sharing burdens instead of always being protected from them. The deepest hearts often hide the greatest stories. Behind calm voices may stand years of unanswered questions. Behind faithful smiles may rest countless disappointments that were quietly surrendered instead of allowed to become bitterness. Behind steady hands may exist invisible scars earned through seasons of sacrifice that no one else ever witnessed. Such people remind us that greatness rarely announces itself with noise. It is revealed through consistent faithfulness, patient endurance, gentle compassion, and the quiet decision to keep choosing love even when no one fully understands the cost. Love is rarely recognized by the volume of its words. More often, it is discovered in what it quietly carries without complaint. The deepest expressions of devotion are not always spoken aloud, nor are they displayed before crowds seeking admiration. They unfold in ordinary moments, in unseen sacrifices, in silent decisions to bear another person's burden without ever asking for acknowledgement. Such love does not keep a record of every hardship it endures. It chooses faithfulness over recognition, believing that genuine care is measured by what it is willing to give, rather than by what it hopes to receive in return. There are people who become guardians of peace within their families, friendships, and communities. They sense tension before anyone else notices it, and they instinctively step forward to absorb the impact. They become the calmer voice during arguments, the encouraging presence during discouragement, and the dependable hand when others begin to stumble. What few realize is that while they are busy holding everyone else together, their own hearts may quietly be carrying burdens too heavy to describe. They have learned to smile while their thoughts wrestle with uncertainty, to reassure others while secretly longing for reassurance themselves. Love often disguises its greatest sacrifices. It willingly allows itself to be misunderstood if doing so protects another person from unnecessary pain. It remains silent when explaining the truth would only deepen someone's sorrow. It chooses patience when frustration would be easier. This kind of love is not weak. It possesses remarkable strength because it places another person's well-being above personal comfort. It understands that true compassion sometimes means enduring discomfort so someone else can continue walking with hope. The world encourages people to announce every accomplishment and every act of generosity. Recognition has become a reward that many seek before offering service. Yet the most meaningful acts of love are frequently those that no one witnesses. A quiet prayer spoken in solitude, an unnoticed act of kindness, a sleepless night spent worrying about someone else's future, a difficult decision made to preserve another person's peace. These moments rarely receive applause, yet they shape lives in profound ways. Their influence extends far beyond what the eye can measure. There is a quiet exhaustion that accompanies those who consistently place others before themselves. They become accustomed to carrying responsibilities that no one assigned them, but that their compassionate hearts accepted without hesitation. They notice the needs that others overlook. They remember forgotten promises, They offer encouragement before anyone asks for it. Over time, these acts become so natural that those around them begin to expect them rather than appreciate them. What was once seen as extraordinary gradually becomes invisible, because consistency often hides the cost of sacrifice. Love carried in secret leaves invisible marks upon the soul. It teaches patience through long seasons of waiting. It cultivates gentleness through repeated disappointments. It strengthens endurance through countless moments when giving up seemed reasonable, but compassion chose another path. Every sacrifice changes the person making it. Sometimes the change is beautiful, producing wisdom and humility. Sometimes it also brings weariness, reminding us that even the most generous heart requires care and renewal. Many people assume that those who give the most have endless reserves of strength. They believe kindness comes naturally without requiring effort. They imagine that compassionate people never struggle with discouragement or loneliness. Yet those who spend their lives lifting others often become experts at concealing their own fatigue. They fear that admitting weakness might disappoint the very people they have spent years encouraging. Instead of asking for help, they quietly continue carrying responsibilities that grow heavier with each passing season. There is something deeply moving about a heart that continues choosing love after experiencing disappointment. It would be understandable for such a heart to become guarded, suspicious, or indifferent. Yet genuine love resists becoming hardened. It remembers the value of mercy even after encountering betrayal. It continues believing in hope even after seasons filled with unanswered questions. Such perseverance reveals a strength that cannot be measured by outward success. It is the quiet triumph of character refusing to surrender to bitterness. Love is rarely dramatic. It exists in the parent who sacrifices personal dreams to provide opportunities for a child. It lives in the friend who listens patiently while carrying private grief. It appears in the individual who quietly forgives an offense without demanding public acknowledgement. It is present wherever compassion quietly outweighs selfishness. These moments may seem small when viewed individually, but together they form the foundation upon which lasting relationships are built. The greatest danger faced by those who carry love in secret is believing that their sacrifices no longer matter because they remain unnoticed. Appreciation may never arrive in the form they hoped for. Gratitude may be delayed for years or never expressed at all. Yet the value of love has never depended upon applause. Every act of genuine kindness leaves an imprint upon another life, even when immediate results remain hidden. The influence of quiet faithfulness often extends far beyond what the one giving it will ever fully understand. There comes a time when every generous heart must remember that receiving care is not a sign of failure. The one who has spent years comforting others also deserves comfort. The one who has continually offered encouragement also needs someone willing to speak hope into weary places. Love was never intended to flow in only one direction. Healthy compassion allows both giving and receiving, both serving and being supported, both carrying and occasionally setting the burden down. The quiet weight of secret love reminds us that the most meaningful lives are often built far from public attention. They are shaped through daily decisions to remain faithful when recognition is absent, to remain patient when circumstances become difficult, and to remain compassionate when disappointment offers every excuse to withdraw. Such love transforms not only those who receive it, but also the heart that chooses it, refining character through sacrifice, strengthening hope through endurance, and revealing that the deepest expressions of devotion are often the ones the world never sees. There comes a moment in every deeply lived life when silence can no longer contain what the heart has been carrying. For a long time, words may have remained carefully chosen, emotions carefully restrained, and expressions carefully controlled. The face continues to smile, the voice remains steady, and daily responsibilities are fulfilled with remarkable consistency. Yet beneath that calm surface, memories, disappointments, unanswered questions, and unspoken grief continue to gather like rain behind a dam. Eventually, the heart reaches a place where tears become more honest than explanations, And what has been hidden for so long quietly finds its way into the light. The world often misunderstands tears. Many assume they are evidence of weakness or failure, as though the strongest people never allow themselves to cry. Yet tears are among the most truthful expressions of the human soul. They appear when language reaches its limit, when emotions become too profound for ordinary conversation, and when the heart finally releases burdens it has carried far longer than anyone realized. They do not diminish strength. They reveal the cost of remaining strong for so long. Some people have spent years believing they must always appear unshaken. They learned early that others depended on them, so they quietly accepted the role of protector, encourager, and steady presence. They became the ones who listened without asking to be heard, who comforted without expecting comfort in return, and who carried responsibility without allowing anyone to notice how heavy it had become. In time, they convinced themselves that their own emotions could wait, that there would eventually be a more convenient season to acknowledge their pain. But the heart was never designed to postpone honesty forever. There is a remarkable difference between hiding emotions and mastering them. Suppressing sorrow does not make it disappear. It merely teaches it to speak through exhaustion, restlessness, loneliness, or quiet discouragement. What remains unspoken often finds another way to reveal itself. A weary spirit may smile outwardly while inwardly struggling to find the strength to continue. Gentle words may conceal deep disappointment. Faithful service may hide overwhelming fatigue. The absence of visible tears has never guaranteed the absence of hidden grief. When tears finally come, they often surprise everyone, including the one shedding them. They arrive unexpectedly during an ordinary conversation, a familiar memory, a quiet evening, or a simple act of kindness. What seemed manageable suddenly becomes impossible to contain. Years of restrained emotion break free in a single moment, not because the individual has become weaker, but because the soul has finally recognized that truth is safer than pretense. There is profound courage in allowing genuine emotion to be seen. Many of life's greatest transformations begin with honest vulnerability rather than impressive achievements. A person cannot truly heal while pretending to be untouched. Restoration begins where honesty begins. The heart must first acknowledge its wounds before it can experience renewal. Every tear becomes an invitation to abandon the exhausting effort of appearing unaffected. It whispers that authenticity is stronger than performance, and that genuine peace grows only where truth is welcomed. Hidden emotions often carry hidden stories. Behind every tear may rest years of unnoticed sacrifice, misunderstood intentions, broken expectations, or quiet endurance. No one sees the countless moments when discouragement was overcome in silence, when fear was replaced with determination, or when compassion continued despite repeated disappointment. Tears become witnesses to battles that no audience ever observed. They testify that the heart continued loving even when love required extraordinary sacrifice. The people who cry the least are not always those who suffer the least. Sometimes they are the ones who have spent the longest protecting everyone else from their own pain. They believe that revealing their struggles would burden those they care about, so they quietly carry everything alone. They become experts at changing the subject whenever attention turns toward them. They offer reassurance while secretly longing for someone to ask how they are truly doing. Their strength becomes so familiar that others forget strength also becomes tired. There is no shame in reaching the place where composure gives way to honesty. Every human soul has limits. Even the strongest foundation requires care after enduring countless storms. Tears remind us that we are not machines built only for performance. We are living hearts created to feel deeply, to love sincerely, and to acknowledge loss without allowing it to define our future. Emotional honesty does not erase courage. It reveals courage in one of its purest forms. Sometimes a single conversation changes everything. A compassionate listener, an unexpected moment of understanding, or the simple realization that one no longer has to carry every burden alone can open doors that have remained locked for years. The tears that follow are not signs that life is falling apart. Often they are evidence that healing has quietly begun. What was once imprisoned behind silence is finally breathing fresh air. What remained hidden no longer has to fight for recognition. There is wisdom in allowing sorrow to speak, without allowing it to become the final voice. Pain deserves acknowledgement, but it does not deserve complete authority over the future. Tears may describe what has been endured, but they do not determine what is still possible. They become part of the journey, rather than the destination. They cleanse the heart of burdens that words could never fully remove and create space for renewed compassion, deeper understanding, and greater appreciation for the quiet strength that carried the soul through every unseen battle. Those who witness another person's tears should never rush to silence them. Presence often accomplishes more than perfect advice. Compassion frequently speaks most clearly through attentive listening rather than carefully prepared answers. The heart does not always seek solutions first. Sometimes it simply longs to be understood without judgment, to be accepted without pretending, and to discover that vulnerability does not diminish dignity. Within such moments, hidden emotions no longer remain prisoners of silence, and the soul begins to rediscover the quiet freedom that only truth can bring. Goodbyes have a way of awakening emotions that ordinary moments never seem to reach. They arrive quietly at first, often disguised as simple changes in routine, subtle shifts in relationships, or unexpected turns in life's journey. Few people recognize them immediately because the heart naturally hopes that familiar seasons will continue forever. Yet every meaningful chapter eventually reaches a point where holding on becomes more painful than letting go. It is within these moments that the true meaning of a goodbye begins to unfold. Not as an enemy of hope, but as a messenger of transformation. Many fear goodbyes because they associate them only with loss. They imagine empty spaces, unanswered questions, and memories that refuse to fade. While these feelings are real, they reveal only part of the story. A goodbye is often the closing of one season so another may begin. It is the quiet acknowledgement that certain burdens have been carried long enough. Certain struggles have shaped the heart as much as they ever will, and certain paths no longer lead toward growth. Letting go does not always mean forgetting. More often, it means honoring what has been while accepting that it cannot remain unchanged forever. The human heart has an extraordinary tendency to cling to what feels familiar, even when familiarity has become a source of exhaustion. People remain in conversations that no longer bring peace, carry expectations that no longer fit their lives, and continue revisiting old disappointments as though repeating them might somehow produce a different ending. There is comfort in what is known, even when what is known quietly drains joy from the soul. A meaningful goodbye asks the heart to trust that there is life beyond what it has always understood. Some farewells happen between people. Others happen within the soul itself. There are moments when a person quietly says goodbye to fear, to shame, to bitterness, or to the impossible expectation of pleasing everyone. These internal goodbyes are often invisible to others, yet they may become the most significant changes a person ever experiences. The world notices outward achievements, but the greatest victories frequently occur when the heart releases what has secretly imprisoned it for years. Tears naturally accompany these moments because every ending carries a measure of grief, even when it leads towards something better. Grief is not always evidence that the wrong decision has been made. It is often the heart's way of honoring what once mattered deeply. To release something valuable is never easy. Whether it is a relationship, a dream, an identity, or a season of life, every meaningful goodbye reminds us that love leaves lasting impressions. The sadness exists because the connection was real, not because the future has been lost. There is remarkable courage in accepting that not everything is meant to remain forever. Some seasons exist to teach rather than to last. They shape character, deepen compassion, strengthen perseverance, and reveal hidden aspects of the soul. Once their purpose has been fulfilled, remaining within them may no longer produce growth. What once served as protection may gradually become limitation. What once provided comfort may quietly prevent new opportunities from emerging. Wisdom recognizes when gratitude must replace attachment. Many people delay necessary goodbyes because they fear uncertainty more than discomfort. They would rather remain in familiar pain than step into unfamiliar possibility. The unknown appears intimidating because it offers no guarantees. Yet every meaningful journey requires the willingness to leave something behind. No traveler reaches a new destination without first departing from the place where the journey began. Every step forward carries within it the quiet echo of something that has been released. Goodbyes also reveal what truly mattered. When a chapter closes, its lasting influence becomes clearer. The lessons remain even after circumstances change. Acts of kindness continue shaping character long after the moments themselves have passed. Words spoken with love continue echoing through memory. Sacrifices made in faithfulness continue influencing lives that may never fully understand their significance. Though seasons end, their impact often continues in ways impossible to measure. There is a temptation to believe that every ending represents failure. Yet many endings exist precisely because growth has occurred. A student eventually leaves the classroom, not because learning was unsuccessful, but because learning has prepared the student for something greater. A seed no longer remains hidden beneath the soil once it begins to grow. Childhood gives way to maturity through countless quiet farewells. Life itself moves forward through continual transitions, each one inviting greater wisdom than the season before. The heart becomes lighter when it no longer spends all its strength resisting change. Acceptance does not erase sorrow, but it removes the exhausting struggle against reality. Peace often begins where resistance ends. The tears that accompany a farewell become less about despair and more about gratitude for what was experienced. They acknowledge both the beauty that existed and the courage now required to continue walking forward. Some of the most meaningful goodbyes are never spoken aloud. They happen in quiet moments of reflection, when a person finally releases resentment that has lingered for years, forgives what cannot be changed, or lays aside expectations that have become impossible to fulfill. No audience applauds these victories. No ceremony announces their arrival, yet they transform the heart more profoundly than many public achievements. Invisible chains quietly fall away, making room for renewed freedom and deeper compassion. Every goodbye invites a choice. One may cling to the pain of what is ending or embrace the wisdom gained through the journey. One may allow memories to become prisons or permit them to become teachers. The past can either anchor the soul in regret or strengthen it with understanding. The difference lies not in what happened, but in how the heart chooses to carry those experiences into the future. There is quiet dignity in releasing what has completed its purpose. There is strength in acknowledging that some chapters were never meant to become the entire story. A farewell does not erase love, nor does it diminish sacrifice. Instead, it recognizes that life continues to unfold beyond every ending, carrying with it the lessons, compassion, resilience, and hope that were formed through every hidden struggle, every faithful step, every silent tear, and every season that quietly prepared the soul for what comes next. Every season of hidden suffering leaves behind a question that quietly echoes within the heart. How does a person continue after carrying so much for so long? It is a question that cannot be answered with simple optimism or empty promises. It deserves honesty because the weight of silent endurance changes a person. No one passes through prolonged sorrow unchanged. The heart learns new depths of compassion, the mind discovers unexpected resilience, and the soul begins to understand that true strength is often formed in places where no applause can reach. Walking forward does not mean pretending the past never happened. It means allowing every difficult chapter to become a source of wisdom rather than a permanent place of residence. There is a remarkable difference between surviving pain and being defined by it. Many people continue breathing while secretly believing their most difficult experiences have become their identity. They introduce themselves to life through old disappointments, forgotten dreams, and wounds that have long since healed, but whose memories still speak with great authority. Yet the purpose of suffering is not to imprison the heart within yesterday's sorrow. Every hardship carries lessons that deserve to be remembered But those lessons were never meant to become chains preventing the future from unfolding. Hope often returns quietly rather than dramatically. It seldom announces itself with overwhelming certainty or immediate transformation. More often, it arrives through small decisions repeated faithfully each day. It appears when someone chooses kindness after experiencing cruelty, patience after seasons of frustration, forgiveness after enduring disappointment, and compassion after knowing what it feels like to stand alone. These quiet choices may seem insignificant, yet they gradually reshape the heart until despair no longer occupies the place it once claimed. The journey forward requires releasing the belief that healing must erase every scar. Scars are not evidence that life has failed. They testify that pain did not have the final word. They remind the heart that difficult seasons were endured rather than surrendered to. Every scar tells a story of survival, perseverance, and quiet courage. Though they remain visible, they no longer possess the authority to determine tomorrow's possibilities. Instead, they become reminders that even the deepest wounds can eventually lose their power to control the future. Compassion grows naturally within those who have known hidden suffering. People who have walked through lonely valleys develop an extraordinary ability to recognize quiet pain in others. They notice tired eyes behind polite smiles, gentle voices carrying invisible burdens, and moments when someone desperately needs encouragement but lacks the words to ask for it. Their kindness becomes more intentional because they understand how a single act of genuine care can change the direction of another person's day. They no longer assume that outward appearances reveal inward realities. One of the greatest temptations after seasons of hardship is allowing the heart to become guarded against future relationships. Disappointment whispers that distance is safer than vulnerability. Past betrayals suggest that trust should never again be offered freely. While caution possesses wisdom, isolation gradually steals opportunities for meaningful connection. A heart completely protected from disappointment also becomes protected from genuine joy. Walking forward requires courage not only to heal but also to love again, to believe again, and to remain open to kindness despite previous wounds. There is quiet strength in choosing gratitude without denying pain. Gratitude does not pretend that every experience was pleasant or desirable. Instead, it recognizes that valuable lessons often emerge from difficult circumstances. Patience is rarely learned during moments of comfort. Mercy becomes meaningful because forgiveness has become necessary. Humility grows through recognizing personal limitations. Endurance develops because surrender was resisted one day at a time. Looking back with gratitude does not celebrate suffering itself. It honors the character that suffering helped shape. Many people spend years waiting for perfect conditions before taking another step forward. They believe complete certainty must arrive before hope can return. Yet life has never unfolded according to perfect timing. Progress begins with imperfect steps taken despite lingering questions. Confidence often follows obedience rather than preceding it. The road becomes clearer as it is traveled. Strength increases through movement rather than hesitation. Those who continue walking discover abilities they never knew they possessed, because those abilities could only emerge through continued perseverance. The heart also learns the importance of extending to itself the same compassion it so willingly offers others. Those who have carried great burdens often become their own harshest critics. They measure themselves by impossible standards, remembering every mistake while overlooking countless acts of faithfulness. They easily forgive others while refusing to grant themselves the same grace. Yet true renewal includes learning to replace constant self-condemnation with patient understanding. Growth requires honesty about imperfections, without allowing those imperfections to define personal worth. Walking forward also means recognizing that every new day offers opportunities unavailable yesterday. The future is not obligated to repeat the past. While memories remain, circumstances continue changing, people continue growing, and new possibilities quietly emerge where hopelessness once seemed permanent. Remaining attentive to these opportunities requires lifting one's eyes beyond former disappointments. A heart fixed entirely upon what has been lost may overlook what is patiently waiting to be discovered. Those who have endured hidden suffering often become unexpected sources of hope for others. Not because they possess perfect answers, but because their lives demonstrate that perseverance is possible. Their quiet resilience speaks more convincingly than impressive speeches. Their gentleness after hardship proves that bitterness is not inevitable. Their willingness to continue loving after disappointment reminds others that compassion remains stronger than cynicism. They become living reminders that the deepest pain does not have to extinguish the deepest kindness. Every step taken after seasons of silent endurance carries extraordinary significance. It represents a decision not to surrender to despair, not to allow fear to dictate every choice, and not to permit yesterday's wounds to silence tomorrow's possibilities. Progress is rarely measured by dramatic moments. It is discovered through consistent faithfulness, renewed purpose, growing wisdom, patient endurance, compassionate relationships, and the quiet determination to continue moving forward even when the journey remains unfinished, trusting that every difficult season has prepared the heart with strength, humility, understanding, and hope that will continue shaping every step that follows.